He's coming back shortly. I can just wait. Ready? Let's see.
It's after 6.
Yeah, all right. I will call the meeting to order at 6 p.m. For those that wish to recite the pledge of allegiance, feel free to stand now or do your quiet contemplation. Whoever wants to speak can.
To the flag, to the republic, which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Sorry, Barbara. I wasn't sure how quick you're gonna come back, so we started. Tony, can you grab it? All right, so we're moving on to the approval from the May 16th, 2024 meeting.
I'll move that we approve the May 16th board meeting minutes.
Second.
Any discussion on the minutes at all? Great. And then calling, oh wait, so all in favor of approving the minutes from the May 16, 2024 board meeting?
Aye.
Great. And then any, move to approve the minutes from the special meeting, May 30th, 2024? Just double checking, Marina's not here. Amy, are you good?
I am. Did we have any abstentions for the poll of the minutes, Tony, because you weren't
For
here?
both of those, yeah.
Okay. I can try to take notes as well, but
I got
get for doing the both of
it.
those.
Did somebody second the special meeting?
Marcia first, Barbara
Barbara
second. Any discussion on the minutes from the special meeting? Everyone, who votes in favor of the minutes from the special meeting, say aye. Anyone not approved? Do we have any public input from folks in the room or online?
I don't have anybody written down on the sheet.
Okay. Okay, so we are on to personnel actions. This is to approve the appointment of Peter Petruski to the position of Library Director 3 on May 22nd, 2024. To appoint Linda McGuire to the position of custodian on June 12th, 2024. To appoint Adam DeCalco to the position of custodian on June 12th, 2024. To accept the resignation of Adam DeCalco, custodian on June 13th, 2024. And to accept the resignation of Linda McGuire, custodian on June 14th, 2024.
So moved.
Barbara? Anyone second that?
Second.
Any discussion?
The background on why these people came in and why they left.
I think Peter has. some.
Yeah, so it was a challenging recruitment. From our candidate pool, we got 2 candidates who accepted positions. One found that after coming into a financial windfall, she no longer needed a position. And the other left a note saying it wasn't going to work. So we accepted both of their resignations and we will be going back out to recruit again.
If anybody knows anyone who needs a summer job, you can recommend them to this. All right. All right, we're going through this. So we are on to the treasurer report.
All right, so in your package should be the financial statements. We'll start with those. And looking at the statement of net position, formerly known as the balance sheet. It's pretty typical for a month where we don't get in tax levies. Our short-term investments, we pull some from that in order to fund operations since we get the levies in chunks, I guess. So Short-term investments went down about $285,000. Cash and investments went up a little bit, just a timing issue of when they transfer the money into the cash account. And we had, I think, net expenses net of revenue of about 316, so that pretty much offsets. Going down, I guess it's interesting, line 15, due to Gilderland Central School District, we're showing $200,255. This is the money that is due back to the school district. They originally forwarded us the full amount of the bonds that were issued for the building project. And after all of the expenditures, they just released a report that showed we're within $18 of that is the amount that's due back to the school district. And they say that all of the expenses have been reported and they don't expect anything more, which is a good thing because I think the school district wants to move on. I think that's the most interesting things on that position. Looking at the statement of revenue, expenses, and changes in net position. Under the tax levy, there's 4,477 showing up, and this was a pilot of payment in lieu of taxes that was received during the month. Looking at expenses, the most unfavorable expenses, salaries and wages of about 34,972. And that was primarily due to the retirement buyout. The other one that's fairly unfavorable is library materials. It was $12,000 over budget, but on that particular line item, line 9, we're still about $28,000 favorable. And again, the interest and investment income is still very favorable. It's probably dropping off a little bit as we use what we had invested to fund the operations each month. So that's coming down slightly, but it'll still be very favorable to budget. I think that's it on the statement. Are there any questions? The Finance Committee did review these Tuesday night.
I have a question.
Okay.
For the salaries and wages, for May, it's 34,000 negative, and then it's gonna go up to 80. Is there additional payouts or is
No,
that just
it's
calculated?
80,000 on a year-to-date basis.
Oh, okay. Gotcha.
But since you said that, I should have said that it will go more negative because they have to make the remaining payments. I should have brought that up, which will happen in June.
I have the wrong question. Right. See? Nice.
Have to work that together.
Giving myself credit. I'll make any other questions.
All right. We do the check run next? Okay. So the check run, there's 2 pages of that. We did decide at Tuesday's meeting that going forward, the staff is going to make notations next to some of the line items where there are things that are a little bit out of the ordinary. But we did review that and, I don't think there was anything that was that unusual. There was a few ins and outs that you'll see, which just means that there were times when checks were cut and had to be voided and everything, and we kind of reviewed those. Are there any questions on any of the disbursements? And I think the last thing is the investment report. What?
Oh, yeah, we
okay.
do. Yeah.
Sorry.
What's overdrive bank again?
That's the audio.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Do we have a movement to approve the check register? So moved. Cory.
Second.
All in favor of approving the check register, say aye. Aye. Anyone opposed?
So the investment report is attached to, just so that you can see all the things that are, that we have. And, you know, our primary investment is with NBT, their IntraFi account that we approved. Oh, seems like yesterday, but it was quite some time ago. It's still paying 5.15%. I'm surprised the rates aren't dropping a little bit, but so far it's held at exactly what it was when we started the account. And we do have some CDs, nothing new and nothing different from last month, with Broadview, formerly Capcom, that we have. And I think, you know, as we said before, the only real change to it was the IntraFi account went down as we transferred money over to cover operations. That's all I have to say about that. This is one of those non-exciting finance months, which you kind of want every once in a while.
They will take it. Unless you got any good jokes. No.
No, the accounting jokes I have would
Okay.
be well received.
All right. So we do not need to approve anything for that, but thank you for your update, George.
Pete, let me just ask one question here. In the email exchange we had about the construction cost as built, as budgeted, the reconciliation of that, where do we stand on?
I spoke with the architects and from their end, we're closed out, but I still need to do a little bit of work with our internal finances to see where we stand. So close to having an answer.
That's going to show us how much was left over in the bond after all costs. Cafe.
Yes.
For discussion points. All right, moving on to directors and department heads report for 2024.
So for the sake of brevity, I won't make you sit through me reading the whole thing, but first bit of exciting news, this Wednesday marked the end of my first month as the director here.
Wow.
Very exciting. I wanted to give a couple of really public thank yous and shout outs to some of the
Marcia to the information desk. Marcia to the information desk. Thank you.
I think it is our Marcia. So a public thank you to Nate Hare, who acted as the interim director for the last couple of months. Sorry, it's not fiscal things.
Oh, no, I just, yeah.
Okay. He's on a well-deserved vacation this week, but a big thank you to him. He's made the transition that I've gone through very smooth. We had a couple retirements in May. Maria Buell, Kim LaPlante, and Lauren Vincent all retired. So congratulations to them. And we're wishing them happy retirements. To that end, recruitment is going to be one of our top priorities. We've got some open positions in the library that I'd really like to get filled quickly. You may have noticed early voting for the primary has begun, and the Board of Elections is currently in one of our, in the Helderberg room. Big shout out to Amy, who volunteered to come in and work on Wednesday. The library was closed, but early voting was open, so thank you, Amy, for that. And we've gotten several comment cards thanking Dustin Wilder, one of our library staff. It's always great to hear from the public that they love the work we're doing. And as I was looking into Dustin's, give him the shout out, he will have been here 21 years next month. So that is a lengthy tenure and he's still getting really positive remarks from the public. So kudos to Dustin. And then a note that is in the admin section of the director and department head report. We completed our staff training day, huge benefit to the staff. We were closed to the public on that day. There's still more areas of training that we need for our staff. So we're going to be coming back with a recommendation to close for an additional period of time in September or October, just to complete some of the training areas we didn't get to.
Is there any feedback from the public about the enclosure staff training day? Did that catch people by surprise or?
I don't think so. I haven't heard anything. Has anybody else heard anything? We tried to be really forthright and proactive with our messaging to make sure that people knew we would be closed. We've got a couple more closures coming up. We were closed for Juneteenth. We'll be closed on the 4th of July. We have summer hours coming up, and we really just want to, on the border of over communicate to that public, just so that nobody's disappointed when they come to the door.
And we've been closing for several years for Staff Development Day, correct?
Yeah.
3 years.
Yeah.
Anybody else?
1 day.
One, yeah.
One day.
Yes.
Did anybody else from the team have anything that we want to highlight that I forgot? No, sounds good. I think that's it. for
Oh,
me.
you're right. Okay. Oh, I was like, that was really brief. Okay, great. All right. Any other discussion on the directors and department head reports? Otherwise, we will move on to our committee reports. Mine is short and sweet. Building and grounds did not meet. We're letting the new director settle in a little bit before we harangue him for more building and ground stuff, but the committee's here if you guys need anything to come to the board. And then going on to the boy who's our gauntlet.
Here we go. Long range planning has not met. We're gonna have to meet this month so that we can extend it because the long range plan has to be in place so that we can restart with the newly formed committee going forward and get back into this. So there's nothing to report from that. I passed out minutes from the finance committee meeting. The first few points are things that George went through, but I just wanted to note a couple of things. Several members of the board attended a board training with Judith Wines from Upper Hudson Library System about financial best practices, Finance 101. And so we discussed in the meeting a few things that we may want to do in the future. One, which George mentioned, was adding notes to the check register, setting a threshold for whether or not we should amend the budget when we are significantly over or under in a particular area. And defining and approving, which has been discussed several times, but we'll get finalized, the board designated funds that we were discussing from before. So those are things that are going to be happening with the finance committee in the future that we just wanted to establish and get down on paper so they don't get forgotten. So, but most of the other stuff George covered, and thank you for putting together the reports.
Lori, can I just add one more thing to that training
Certainly.
session? They mentioned also expanding our categories on our budget presentation
Yeah.
or on our monthly reports, so that instead of just saying personnel, we would have subheadings, administration, we lump them all together, clerks, lump them all together, librarian ones, lump them all together, so that you have a better explanation of what are these salaries for? And so maybe we can work on that over time.
Interestingly enough, we're gonna be meeting tomorrow at 11 o'clock, and I did want to talk to him a little bit about developing more information on salaries. Right now, in the general ledger, we only track it in total, which is, I've never seen that before. I've always broken it out by position, so I didn't hear that before, but that would probably be a good idea so that we had a better idea
Yeah, because I think her example
where we're
was.
spending it, and where the
Right,
variances
yeah,
are.
that was her example, is like, if you just say materials went up drastically, was it
Right,
printing ink, or is it like book purchase, like whatever the smaller buckets make sense, you don't want to go ham.
right,
You're
right.
like
right,
pencils,
but I-
pens.
Salary is such a large portion of
Yeah.
our budget, and I think that, and Nate did a really good job pulling information for the budget. I think the budget broke it out better than we've ever seen it because of that. But I did want to kind of expand on that a little bit. So
Great, that was one thing.
unknown to the,
No, I was actually going to talk to you about that.
oh, that's
Future
okay.
point, so this is perfect that Barbara
Yeah,
brought it up.
yeah.
So,
Nice.
thank you, and thanks for adding that in. And it was a great presentation, I will really say. I thought it was really helpful. The audit committee has not met. Hopefully with the close of the project, or close of the building project. I'm sorry, George, you didn't want me to use the word project, I think, but that will happen very soon. And then my final report is Upper Hudson. So the Upper Hudson had its annual meeting this month, so we didn't have a traditional meeting. But I did just want to give one shout out to the board as a whole, just so we sort of understand what kind of programs are happening. They announced the winners of the youth services program and the winner of the adult services program. And though this particular program wasn't selected as a winner, it went up against a very highly competitive slate, and Albany Public Library won for a program called Period Party, designed for teens. Hands down, this program that was submitted from Guilderland is fantastic and was ranked at the top of the crowd. And so I just wanted to give a shout out to Jocelyn Wilder, who put together this Sky Friends story time. And you think story time, that's what all libraries do, but there's so many different components to this. If you have little ones and would want to take them, this just is an absolutely fantastic program. And so I wanted to shout that out. And this was submitted by Brianna, who's the department head for youth services, but it's Jocelyn's program. So fantastic. I hope that we continue to nominate our outstanding programs for the Upper Hudson Awards. All right, done.
Narina's not here, but I don't think policies has met if anyone else is on that committee. No, okay. Personnel, Mike.
So personnel met twice, I believe it was on May 22nd and May 30th to finish the negotiation of the management confidential contracts. We did basically finish kind of coming to agreement on the terms for those contracts. And the last I heard, Nate was going to run or basically incorporate the various changes in terms that had been discussed into a kind of final template for those positions, and also run it by the lawyers for wording of particular provisions. And that's, I believe, the last I heard on that. I don't know if there's any
I don't think
more on
there's
that.
been any, that's since then.
So we have the tentative contracts for those positions more or less done, with the exception of some wording and things like that. While I have the floor, also the ad hoc committee for the cafe investigation also has met, I guess, twice since the last time. Once just immediately prior to this meeting, and once a few weeks ago in May. And basically, I think we said this last time, but we are waiting to get the outside auditors report, because we want to make sure we're kind of covering all of the ground between our investigation and theirs, and then that we're kind of covering all of the issues that have been raised as concerns that people want to hear about. But basically, we made a lot of progress. Bill did a lot of the heavy lifting on kind of assembling facts and kind of going through all kinds of board minutes and videos and everything. And Marcia is taking the lead right now in trying to craft the actual, at least a draft of what will be the actual report. But we are still also trying to collect a little more information to fill in some gaps that still exist. Today, we did an interview of Elish to get her information from her position on the Buildings and Grounds committee during the cafe construction and everything. And we most likely have at least one more interview that we're going to want to do. So it's moving along, and we're trying to get it to a conclusion. So that's it for that. And the labor management not met. So.
Board development.
And we had surveyed all of you for our second hour of board development. And unfortunately, our most popular one for Tuesday at noon to 1 has been taken by another library as of today. So we now have Thursday and Friday, and I know, Bill, you couldn't do Thursday and Friday, but we have 4 people. If anybody can do Thursday and Friday, noon to 1, he will do it.
I think we should probably prioritize whoever is missing their hours, because while I can do those, I hit my hours, so I wouldn't want to be the one dictating that. So I guess who is left to do their hours, and when are they available?
I can't do daytime. Noon to 1 is always out.
And those are night ones?
These are noon to 1.
Oh, those are only noon to 1 Thursday and Friday?
Yeah.
Okay.
I can ask him, if he still has any of the evening hours. And I can do that, but
Is there anyone left that has, I guess, here that needs to do it? I think Marcia had it as well.
Marcia's available on Thursday and Friday. Mike, I am. Tony, you're not available either of those days?
Friday, no. I work from 7 to 9 on Fridays, so no. And Thursday evening, maybe I could probably do. But I can't do I can't do during the day.
Okay, all right. Okay, so I will just keep you all posted and hopefully at least some of us can get a few things done.
Yeah, I don't know how we can definitively figure out who's left that needs time. Do you need an hour as well?
When is it calendar year or what is?
I think it's up to June school year. It's up to
Fiscal
June
year.
30th.
I gotta check, cause I had done some of the, those, a while back, those, book group, the ones that Tim Wiles was sending around.
Natalie, do those count, the book club?
The trustee book.
The
club?
trustee- yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I think I have the hours I need, so.
Okay.
If, if one of those gets scheduled, I'll try and do it anyway, but.
Oh, good.
But I don't think I need the
Because he
hours.
doesn't want to do it for two people.
I will try to make whatever one it is. I just don't want to be the deciding factor. So
Yeah.
if there's folks that need the hours, like, their schedule should dictate that. And I feel like we'll round it out. All right. I'm not sure. Do we need to officially dissolve the search committee? That is
I
not.
thought we voted to
so.
do that last, we
I
voted
thought-
to do that last time.
Did we?
I thought. Check the minutes.
Check. Wasn't sure.
Or we do it again.
We were waiting for the final signatures on the director's contract.
Oh.
We had to make sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, we didn't want you running away.
Yeah.
Hey.
Motion to disband the search committee.
Second.
All in favor of disbanding the ad hoc search committee?
Aye.
Aye. Shut it down.
Bye.
Oh,
Oh, Kathy's on there.
Kathy. Right. It is- Yeah, she just popped. She had trouble getting on, so
You have capably discharged your duties.
I need one less committee in my life.
I'm on my husband's phone because he had the download on his phone, so.
Yeah, well, glad you're here, or almost done with the committee reports. We're chugging along. I know Narina's not here, but I think Barbara, you're reporting in for the nominating committee. And then I don't know if I know Mike P is here. Did we want to have him talk here or in new business or something? I didn't know if there was any kind of.
He was just, Mike was invited to
Hanging out,
observe and see
observe.
if he
Okay.
still was
Wasn't sure.
interested.
Okay, I wasn't sure what the.
Corey has graciously agreed to be president and nobody else stepped up, so thank you, Corey. And the leash will continue as vice president, and Mike is nice enough to accept the secretary position. So that will be your slate come the July meeting.
Thanks.
Yes.
Thank you. I will be reappointed.
Right, yeah. That's fair.
And I don't know at what point we do this, but we need to nominate Mike for the one vacancy.
Is it at July?
No, that's now, so that he can, there is a vacancy, Ted is gone and Vanessa's gone, so at this meeting, as soon as he's voted in, we have to appoint him this meeting. And the next vacancy, be it Mike or anybody else that volunteers or whatever,
Isn't he still filling out his own though? Can he do two?
Well,
How's that?
I think it would be as of July 1st.
As of July 1st.
Right,
Okay.
because as of the
Right.
30th, so next week, my term will expire and I will no
Okay.
longer be on the
Gotcha.
board. So if I was appointed for the vacancy as of July 1st, then I could step into that when the current term ends.
And then I'll leave the one vacancy.
Then we'd
because-
still have one more vacancy that we need to fill.
Yeah, because we can chat with you at some point later, see what you're thinking and then.
accept it now.
Yeah, I think
it has to be formalized, but I think, because right, is that, I mean, I'm not on the nominating committee.
what we're doing Mike's tonight, And then we'll do the next vacancy.
The next meeting,
At the next
to just
meeting.
allow time for, folks who are interested and if there's any, yeah.
So I don't know if it's now we do it or we do it under new business or whatever.
Let's stick it under. Stick it in under new business, yeah. Yeah. I was trying to see if it was working there, but yeah, so we'll do that under new business and then I know the different vacancies are a little funky, but I think there's technically like people who are interested can also put in resumes as well for that open position, if anybody was interested. And that's it for the committee reports. Moving on to old business.
Very briefly on old
Yes.
business, or I don't know if there's other old businesses.
I don't have anything listed
Okay.
under here. So.
Corey had mentioned in the finance report, the board designated reserve fund proposal. I just wanted to bring that up. I had circulated before, and if anybody needs it or can't find it, or whatever, I can circulate that again. The kind of write-up that I had done about what we're posing and looking at. And I know that there had been some people that just wanted time to kind of digest it and maybe ask questions or kind of think about it, whatever. I know Marcia was one that wanted to digest it. I know she's not here right now, but if there's anybody who has had a chance to read through that and wants to discuss it or have more information or whatever, I'm happy to kind of talk to anybody about that or kind of what the intent is and what we're trying to do with that. We can either do it at a meeting or I could just talk one-on-one with anyone that wants to, because we just want to keep that moving and move forward. But I want to make sure anybody that has any questions or concerns or whatever has an opportunity to get those answered and really feels comfortable with the goal or, what we're trying to do. So that's all.
Do we want to set like by July meeting, anybody that does want to review and ask questions does so at that meeting and then we vote July or August?
I
just
don't
so
know
we-
if you want it approved by the finance committee before it comes to the full board, or do you? So do you think so?
What makes
Just
more
bring it to the
sense?
full board?
I think you just talk about it enough, right? I mean, I think just full board. The finance committee, we kind of like on the same page anyway.
Yeah, I just want to set a date so we actually vote on it instead of kicking the can. Do people feel confident voting on it at July's meeting? Does that give you enough time to review and have any discussion? Because I just want to try to set a date to actually do that. That work fine?
Yeah, I'll email Marcia because I know that she was the one that I know had specifically said she kind of wanted time to digest and think about and ask questions or whatever. So I'll email her just to kind of, let her know that we're bringing that up and if she wants to discuss or anything. So
There you go. Was there other old business folks had to discuss? Yeah, no business to discuss.
It's all new to me.
New business. Okay. Right, I think the only thing I can discuss here, is just a quick update since Narina's not here. That it looks like Guidepost is still working on their report.
Working on the.
They are still working on the
She sent
report. Yeah, she sent it at 4:37, the update from the lawyer. This is what has been completed, is they completed 6 interviews of current and former GPL staff, conducted 1 interview with a Cafe Conmel staff member, researched and identified the staff members who worked for Cafe Conmel and attempted to make contact for participation in the investigation, reviewed several hundred email correspondence, reviewed several hundred text messages obtained during our interviews, and conducted a review of existing policies and procedures. It says they've started drafting the report and anticipate completing the report with a corresponding recommendation in advance of the July meeting. So it did get postponed a little bit, but just wanted to mention that just as I know.
Go to the top of that. She interviewed 6 employees.
6 current and former GPL staff. I think as someone interviewed, maybe I'm getting included in that number, although I am not staff, but we can maybe get clarification if that's 6 actual staff.
6 employees or
it's
staff.
like 1 Cafe Conmel staff.
Yeah, 1 cafe staff member. I am unsure if I'm getting lumped in the 6 interviews. Separate from that, so.
So this whole report is based on 6 people.
7 interviews.
One side.
Yep.
And
Plus all the emails.
plus
Yeah.
hundreds of emails.
Everything else.
Yep, so that's where we're at, because I know people are following this intently and like to have an update on that. That is what we know as of 4/27 today.
In terms of the budget, are they still within the budget, or are they? Is it a fixed price budget we got for
I
them?
think it was fixed price plus travel.
Yeah,
Yeah, I think plus travel and.
yeah, I think if there was any overages, we would have been made aware already. Like it would have happened already, but I think we're good, yeah.
If that has taken them this much longer, though, just I'm surprised that that comes back out.
I think it was just like an all-inclusive price, I don't know. I mean, they had originally promised by mid-June, so. I think that's the only update for old business that I have. And if nobody else has any other updates, I will move on to new business. All right. It looks like the first item for new business is make library director Peter Petruski a signatory. What do we need for that?
So me,
That's it, just move. There's
We
no
need a
anything else.
resolution for the bank.
Oh.
I can see when we need one, if we have the resolution language. Whoa, that would have been,
it's July.
because they will need the like actual resolution signed by
Right,
the president. and
Now that you say that, I remember we had to do that for,
I had to read near my July.
was that when, it was when we
But
made
it's
him interim
officers. It's when we made him interim.
director?
It's in February.
That sounds right. Do you have?
I'm gonna look back to the minutes.
Because I just want to make sure, because otherwise the bank will reject it, you know. You don't want them rejecting you.
That makes it even more awkward.
That might make it even-
You're technically talking about the proposed bylaws.
We could move to appoint Mike Ralchuk. Somebody wants to do that.
We can also do that, yeah. Right. We have a motion to approve Mike Oralchuk. If I said that right, to a board position lasting it's a year, right? The
Yeah,
term of the year?
yeah,
Okay, I don't know if I said all those right words properly, but
effective July 1st.
effective July 1st, 2024. I'll move.
Second?
Got Tony on the second. All right, all in favor of appointing Mike Ralchuk to the board?
We abstain from this. I guess.
Yes, yeah, get to abstain.
Aye.
Hi, Kathy.
Yeah, she just said aye.
Okay, Lisa's aye.
Perfect.
All right, Mike has abstained. All right, anybody opposed?
And I just found the language
Okay,
for this, and Amy, I'll just send it to you.
Thank you.
so you just want me to read it?
Why don't you read it?
Okay.
Yes.
Resolution to add, I'm gonna say Peter, because that's your official name, Peter Petruski as a signer on NBT bank account, and this would be dated June 20th, 24. Now therefore be it resolved that Peter Petruski in his capacity as Director of Guilderland Public Library is hereby appointed as a check signer at NBT Bank. The undersigned hereby certifies that they are duly elected, qualified, and acting president of the Guilderland Public Library, and that the foregoing resolution was submitted to and approved and adopted by the Board of Trustees at a meeting held on June 20th, 2024, and that said resolution is now in full force and effect without modification or recession as permitted under the bylaws of the library. In witness whereof, the undersigned has hereto set their hand effective to this, the 20th day of June, 2024. I would make the friendly amendment that we say that it is the vice president, since the president is not currently here. to sign this today. That is it.
Does anyone want to move to approve that resolution? As Corey has stated.
Sure. I'll move,
We don't want to make a.
yeah, I'll move the resolution as read by Corey with the modification of the president should be replaced with the vice president, reference to the undersigned, whatever.
Okay. Perfect.
Considering that I'm in Albuquerque, that sounds like a good idea.
Thank you. Unless you want to pop back up here.
Yeah. We have the first and second in that. Okay. All in favor of approving the resolution to make Pete Trusky a signatory for MB Bank as
Aye.
was stated by Corey. All right.
I,
Anybody opposed?
And we'll have to get that printed out so that we
Yes.
can sign it.
Yeah.
Okay. And then we have the proposed bylaw amendments for the committee consolidations and plus other changes we made.
Yeah. It's all related to the committee consolidation. So just as a quick preface to this, and then happy to discuss, since we're taking our board numbers down from 11 to 9, we have a limited number of people that are available to be on committees. Also, we have quite a few committees. So this is some consolidation. It's not taking away any responsibilities. And before we get into it, I'll just address a couple of things that I'm confident are probably going to come up as questions. So for instance, there are only 5 standing committees on this list. And you may think, where did long range planning go? Where did some of this other work? I am proposing that those be ad hoc committees. If we create a long range planning plan this year that's for 3 years, the long range planning committee really only needs to happen during the year that it's created. And then the board can do the evaluation later on. However, if those want to be added back in, this is just a proposal. So we can start the conversation. I can address anything else that I included. This is really just my perspective on this. So open to feedback.
I just have a question on Article 7, number 1. And prior to Kathy becoming president and our predecessor, and in other committees that I've served on and in other organizations, after a committee was formed, committee themselves chose their chairman.
Oh.
Right. And from my standpoint, it's much more democratic and less dictatorial if you do it that way. And I didn't know if the board would be open to changing that wording or not. What is often done in other organizations, like in our July meeting, prior to that, people would get a list of committees, potential committees. Then they would check off 1, 2, most favored, 1, 2, or 3, or whatever. And then at the next meeting, or even at the July meeting, if it's done ahead of time, then there's give and take at the board level. Oh, you wanted to be on that one? Okay, I'll go on to this one. And then you'll get people who either have knowledge about a particular thing, or they have a vested interest in a particular thing, or experience, versus just, pulling out of a hat and you're going to be on this committee, you're going to be on that committee, that type of thing. So I would just ask if we could consider, once the committees are formed, allowing the committee themselves to pick their chair. That, I just throw that out because I know we're just reviewing this right now.
I think we'd want to have a plan B too, because if nobody wants to step up, what then? If you have a committee and everyone says, I don't want to be chair.
That's never my experience that nobody.
Okay.
Now, I'm not sure that,
I'm
maybe.
thinking worst case scenario, that's all.
Yeah. But, that might happen, but I've never seen that come to pass. Oftentimes it says, well, you weren't here, so you were voted in as chair.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I'm on board with that. And I think there, should be some considerations for committees people prefer to be on, because obviously you're going to do better work if you're interested in the subject matter. It just might be that if you have to be on at least two committees, you might get one you want and one you don't want.
Right, right.
What do folks think about having the committee determine their own chair?
I'm fine with that.
So what this would mean to the language was that we would just remove a chair and other. So the president would only appoint members for each standing committee.
And again, the wording should be, the president basically works together with the board at that meeting and presents this, but it's approved by the board. It's not just, the chairman saying, this is a committee and you're stuck on it or whatever. And
Well,
so,
I used to actually ask people what committees they wanted to be on and if they wanted to be a chair. So it wasn't just a dictatorial thing. I used to ask people and I would try to get them on the committees that they wanted. So it was kind of like putting a jigsaw puzzle together sometimes.
right, exactly. All right, that was the only one of the things.
So I was, if we're going to make that change with the chair, along with Corey, I think you suggested just taking out the language of a chair and other from that one line, right? I think we probably in 1A, where it says term of the committee chair, maybe we want to add a sentence at the beginning of that saying each committee shall select its own chair, and then keep that sentence saying can't be the chair more than 2 consecutive years. But add a sentence at the beginning that just says each committee shall choose its, choose a chair.
I'm also fine with, if the shall appoint makes you uncomfortable, I'm fine with changing it. I also think that it's just that the actual appointment the president has to sign off on, but it doesn't preclude any conversation, communication, discussion before the appointment. But if you want it changed, so it could be discussed, but then it's not voted on. The president just officially appoints those committees members, but however that language.
Well, it says that the board has to approve the assignments anyway, right? So I think, while I think definitely, a process where people have input into what committees they want to be in and that gets taken into consideration is good, but I think it would be difficult to, or maybe not the best idea to kind of try and formalize something like that right into our bylaws, because then if, people want to try and do something a little more flexible or different in how they're asking people or how they're asking people to prioritize their committees or that kind of thing. I think that's something better handled just by custom and cooperation rather than trying to cement it into the bylaws. I would be inclined to leave it as it is and just say the president shall appoint and the board approve the members of the committees. There, that's my 2 cents.
Does that feel comfortable to you, or do you want it more specified that it's collaborative? Barbara?
What do you think? You think that president is still gonna approve the chair?
No,
Yeah,
not the
just the
chair,
committee.
the members. Just say the president shall appoint the members and then just so get rid of this. So it just say president shall appoint members for each standing committee. Assignment should be approved by the board. With the understanding that, the president should be asking people and trying to put people to the extent possible where they want to be and that kind of thing. But not kind of cementing that in the rules because that makes it inflexible. And that's just.
Are you okay with that? Okay, and then I'll add that additional line in there under the term of the committee chair, that each committee shall appoint their chair and that they cannot serve for more than 2 years.
I have one question or thought, I guess, or consideration. So for the nominating committee, should that be, I don't know how often they meet in years where there's not a lot going on. Could it possibly be absorbed for streamlining purposes into governance or personnel and or become an ad hoc for the ad hoc contenders? I don't know.
So I'm all for it. And I actually think I'm on the board of another organization that has that in their governance committee, and I'm fine with that. The nominations committee, however, it's going to require some additional adjustment to the bylaws because the nominations committee is the only one that's pulled out and defined in another section of the bylaws.
Mhm.
So, which is why I didn't really futz with it, but I am all for putting it someplace else. Because I don't think that committee meets like, you know, if there's no upset, they meet like once a year, correct? I mean, you're on it.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so.
And traditionally it's been, or unless somebody won't show up, then you gotta,
That's why I figure absorbing it into another committee might make that.
where was the other thing that you said it was also showed up?
Is,
Where does it?
I think it's in the, back in the officers section. Yeah, there, in Article 5, Section 2, it talks about the nominating committee's role there. And then in the duties of officers, this is Article 5, Section 5A, it kind of singles out the nominating committee as slightly different than the others. I don't know if there's any other spots. I mean, you know, we could fix all these things, but it just takes a few more.
it'll just take another path, you know, like
Yeah.
I'm happy to consolidate. I just didn't have it in the original
I
proposal.
don't have any real problem, because again, yeah, it is a committee that only, you know, it is needed every year. So it's not like the ad hoc committee, like the long range planning, where some years you just don't even need it at all. So, you know, it is something that is needed every year, but again, it only, you know, unless there's vacancies and it's only once a year that needs to do anything.
If you want me to take another pass at putting it in there, would you recommend? I sort of separated out personnel because that's typically like staff issues as opposed to board issues. And that's why I sort of would align it more with governance, but I feel like.
It doesn't like completely mesh with the kind of the role of any of the other committees. I mean, we could just for convenience sake lump it in with maybe with governance or one of the other committees, but it kind of is its own separate task. So I could go either way on it. I mean, I don't, you know, it's not like if someone gets assigned to that committee in addition to the other committee works, that's like a whole lot of like extra.
That's what's there too, right? No, it shouldn't be.
But
It is not a hill to die on. It was just a question. For sure.
I
was
mean, it's
like,
what I had thought of too.
Yeah, okay.
the nominating committee also, it's appoint, as it is right now, the appointment of the nominating committee is different from all the other
It
committees.
is, yeah.
Because the president appoints all the other committees, but the nominating committee appoints its own replacement. So it's kind of a self-perpetuating.
And that's why I did.
Which is,
We don't have to fuss with it then.
Well, I mean, if people want it out of there, I can pull it out. It's not a problem. I just need another pass through.
Just take another look at it, but this idea, it has to exist in some form
Yes.
somewhere.
I guess if it was going anywhere, probably governance is the best fit for it, even though it's a little bit different, but.
Bill and Tony have been suspiciously quiet. Do you care if it exists on its own?
Okay. Governance would probably be fine though.
Yeah.
Okay. I will look and see if it's logical to put the nominations committee with the governance committee and consolidate those two. We're looking at the bylaws, proposed bylaws revisions.
I think if it's too messy.
If it's too messy, yeah.
Not gonna make or break anything.
One other thing as we kind of look through this about the size of the committees that you'll notice that is different on here. And Mike and I did speak briefly, and I think some others put their opinions in this. So what this does is does not restrict board committees to only board members overall. So there is language in here that up to 3 non-trustees may be appointed to positions on such committees to bring special capabilities to the functions of the committee. Later on, it's defined in the ad hoc committees, and that language could go in both sections, that they can be appointed as either voting or non-voting members.
It's just for the committee.
Show us where you're talking.
Sure, apologies. It's right under size of the committee. It's the last line. So under Article 7, 1B. So for instance, and you guys know I advocated for this, but I'll let it go because this is my personal bill. that I wanted staff members on the long range planning committee, and I also wanted them to have the right to vote. I wanted to be able to appoint them as voting members, and we couldn't with our current bylaws. Because I feel like anybody that dedicates that much time should have their voice heard.
So they can vote on the committee, sir.
They cannot vote on the board. And as Mike had said, when we discussed this too, everything that goes through a committee has to go to the board for approval anyway. So if there are non-board members that are on it, ultimately it comes down to the board for a decision. So it's not like one outspoken staff member or member of the public is going to be able to stamp something down. It still has to go to the board. I'm fine with that.
My only concern, if you want to check with Tim Burke, if this is even allowed,
Okay.
because you're a public body and you're a public elected body.
Yeah.
And on an ad hoc committee, you can have staff members or whatever.
Mhm. I'll check with him. It's a good point.
I get, my only concern would be, is that the board can delegate authority to committees to act without board approval, without further board approval. So normally, any action of a committee has to be approved by the board before it goes into effect, but the board can delegate to a committee to act without further approval of the board. And then in that case, if you have non-trustees on that committee or voting members, then they're exercising, public
Right.
authority without any check above them of, by
Okay.
the board. So that would be
And-
the one concern on that is those
And
occasions. Yeah.
perhaps because these are duties of the standing committees, then that we would stick with the fact that there can be people on, or we would do a compromise. There can be non-board members on standing committees that they do not have rights to vote. Ad hoc committees, they could have either. Because that sort of solves the problem, because you wouldn't delegate a responsibility to an ad hoc committee. You wouldn't give them the authority to do, to make a final decision. I wouldn't think.
Probably not.
So that would be the plan.
But
Oh,
yeah.
Okay, so standing committee, no voting.
No voting, and ad hoc committees, yes or no, depending upon the committee.
With understanding that anything recommended by that committee would come to the
But
board for
it would
approval.
have to have board approval.
Yeah.
But your long range planning. Yeah.
Yes, so that one, we could appoint staff members that would have voting rights as an ad hoc committee, but obviously the long range plan is going to come back to the board. Right. The committee would never approve it.
So no, I was just gonna say, we can either stipulate that it's an ad hoc committee thing, knowing that that's coming to the board, or we can say any committee that chooses to have voting non-board members on the committee would then be required to get approval from the board for things, right? That seems a little more convoluted though, than just ad hoc.
Yeah, I would put that language like back in where Mike was talking about the.
Sorry, what were you gonna say?
I was just looking at the size of the committees. The committees themselves, these are standing committees, have to be made up of trustees. Then we added a piece that says up to 3 non-trustees may be appointed to positions of such committee to bring special capabilities to the functions of the committee. You might want to add a piece that makes it clear that people.
Without voting rights.
I think that's the way to do it.
Yeah. And then it can stay on the ad hoc.
So just add it to B, Article 7, 8, and 8.
Okay.
That I think takes care of the problem.
The finance and audit committees are consolidated here. There were some initial concerns. I'm gonna have George say it since he's the CPA over here too, but there were some initial concerns about taking a member of the public off. This doesn't take it away. If we want to have a member of the public be on the finance committee or be a special liaison to when the finance committee is discussing the audit. Would you be willing to share your thoughts with the group about that?
I was fundamentally opposed to that initially, because I thought it was important to have outsiders on, but, and Mike reminded me that we're not subject to corporation law and the changes they made. But the Attorney General put guidance that said that basically when it comes to people audit, only independent directors may participate in any board or committee deliberations or voting related to the matters regarding the audit. So to me, and while we're not subject to that, it just seems like you know, the responsibility should be with the board. And the audit committee had two people from the outside and one from inside, so that just didn't make sense after that. So I quickly became a convert, and it's like, you know, and we can invite people, but we haven't been too successful in that anyway, so I think that's really.
And it also doesn't leave it to one trustee member on that. The personnel committee, the big thing that was changed on there is that I added the line, the committee shall also manage the selection process of a new library director when necessary. So that takes it off having to be an ad hoc committee. There could also be other people that are added based on this, but that would put it in there. That's in line with what other boards do that have a more consolidated structure. It's just adding that one in there. The building committee, which maybe should probably be like facilities, since I was just taking away two words from everything. I added in there because this has been a role of the building committee, but hasn't been in here, that they shall make recommendations to the board for substantive changes to the building and grounds and propose contracts with outside vendors to the board. Because that has been the past practice, but it wasn't really documented anywhere that that's who had the responsibility for it.
When you're talking about vendors,
I mean, like the farmer's market, if there is a new cafe, like that's how it would start.
because there are vendors like, you know, for the
Landscaping.
landscaping vendors, snow plowing vendors for the.
Okay, how would we include this, or should we not include it?
I think you could probably talk to our facilities manager, like you were talking about having non-voting people on committees, like he can be the expert and he can bring those quotes to the building and grounds committee. I like it.
Feel about that,
I
yeah.
like it.
Not in favor of that.
You're not in favor of the language?
I think that, for the most part, this guy here is responsible for building and grounds and seeing everything. He should be bringing things to us to,
Okay,
with his staff, to tell us what needs to be done and how they're gonna go about doing it. We just don't really have the expertise or the time that they have to
Okay.
manage that situation.
so staff should be the main point of contact, whereas our past practice has been that it has gone all through building and grounds.
I think that would be
Okay.
better.
And you guys have been the ones investigating this, so you probably have the most insight into.
Could you back up a second? Is there a proposal to fold the nominating committee into the governance committee?
There is an interest in doing that,
Of course,
just for consolidation purposes, and the nominations committee typically only meets once a year unless there's other things.
that's why I think it should stay the way it is.
Okay,
You know, you could clarify that presence on this committee does not fulfill the two committee role. And you could just leave it there the way it is, but just add so that that's clarified
I
that.
think it's a special function,
okay.
particularly since we vote to replace ourselves.
Mhm.
I mean, I'm on it, so,
Yeah.
you know, but it is really not in any way hubristic, but I just think it's a separate function.
I don't have any problem with it either way.
I was the one who asked about it because I didn't know if it made sense to consolidate further, but if it
I'm sorry.
doesn't, no, if it doesn't make sense, that's fine. I said, it's not a hill I'm dying on. I was just asking.
So I'm taking this language back out of the building and grounds facilities committee, whatever we want to call it.
I have just a very minor edit on Article 5, 2A. We've got a cross-reference to Article 7, Section 2G. But what did we,
Yeah,
so if we are deleting a couple committees, then that's going to be re-lettered. You know, so if we drop audit and long-range planning, then that's going to be E.
okay, thank you.
Just so our cross-references stay.
Mhm.
And on that same one, if unable to attend, may designate another trustee in their absence. How about should? That's a critical
Okay, where are you? I
5A.
5A.
Wait a minute, yes, number 5A. second page. No,
Oh, it's in, Article 5, Section 5A.
Oh, okay. 5A, the president. Are you talking about the red one, what I added? If unable to attend, shall designate another trustee.
We're gonna make it a shall.
We're using shall everywhere else, so.
I'm just saying, only because
Well, and that's contractually,
those people to be
Yeah.
present or somebody from the board.
and that's contractually
Right.
required that somebody from the board is there.
Right, exactly.
We did discuss this, I think, very briefly early, but I can't remember if everyone was in here, if this was casually beforehand. Labor Management Committee is a staff committee. Yeah, so it's a committee that is comprised of, Natalie, help me out on the language here. It's a committee that's comprised of the leaders of the two group unions and other staff members. So it's not actually a board committee.
Right, it's a staff committee. And then the board is allowed to designate usually the president to attend the committee meetings.
But someone's supposed to, so that's why that's also being removed from the board standing committees, because it's not actually a board committee.
Just clarification, does staff include MCs or just staff? Just
So
units 1 and 2?
So it's unit 1 and 2, so the president of units 1 and 2, and then they're allowed to bring 3 other staff members with them.
Okay, so staff excludes MCs.
Well, the director sits on it.
Well, I don't count. No offense.
The union staff, yeah,
Just
it's
staff.
representing the union staff.
The other thing though, in many of those that I attended, the union did bring 3 extra people, and many times the board had the board president and other
And the-
interested parties too.
It's just having one board member is the minimum, correct?
Yeah, and their designate
Yeah.
if they can't attend. And then the lawyer can attend as well.
So it's not trying to cut anything out. This is just acknowledging that that's a staff committee, that we have to have a board member there. And so it's under the president, knowing that the president.
At least one.
Yes.
member there.
MP.
Governance, I changed it from policies to governance because I think it's important that we have folks that are actually consistently reviewing the bylaws. So we don't get into these situations. So rather than just policies, they would also be reviewing the bylaws as a part of the regular structure committee to propose amendments. We already talked about long range planning, that would be an ad hoc committee, so it's taken off there. We'll leave the nominating committee on there. As a separate thing. And then under ad hoc committees we had very little language on it. So I just looked at some other folks and how they phrase this. So if there's any other recommendations for changes on that little section.
Question. Just because I've never seen this read like this, the oversight of the physical plant and grounds of the library.
The facility itself, like that was in the old language.
If people understand that, I've just never seen that combination of words like that before.
At the bottom.
I mean, or just a question.
I don't know. People does physical plant make sense to other folks? Should it say the facility?
I think it's fine as
It's
is.
fine. I'm just curious. I was like, I didn't know if that's just, if it's supposed to read like
Yeah.
that. Okay, that's fine.
I have one question on that. With our new reorganization with 9, would 5 be considered a board meeting, or would you have to have 2/3? But I'm saying, but not more than 5, you may want to say not more than 4 trustees, because then you have a meeting of the board. You
I
have more.
understand what you're saying and that makes sense. I was trying to think committees are always better with an odd number in case there's a vote, but we don't really argue enough to make that a big point of contention. So all these committees would be 3 or 4 then?
Yeah, I think if there's ever an issue of a stalemate, we would bring it to the board
Yeah.
for a final decision
I
anyway.
mean, five, if.
Five is a lot.
isn't a quorum, then.
Well, five is,
Go with it.
five is a quorum.
So,
Under the-
okay.
Right?
Yeah.
Four of
Yeah.
us.
So no one's gonna be opposed to having to serve on potentially one less committee.
So, well, I mean, so.
You're still
well-
gonna serve on two committees.
If we look at this, we only have, aside from the nominating committee, which is a self-appointing committee, so that's its own separate thing. We only are left with only 4 standing committees, because we're gonna have finance, personnel, facilities, and governance. That's our 4 committees. There's 9 members of the board, so that means, in order to have 4 people on every committee, that's not even 2 committees for everybody, because.
However, we will have a long-range planning ad hoc committee this year.
Yeah.
Um,
No, I don't have a problem with it. I think it's
Oh.
fine. I'm just saying, if we limit it to 4, and we have 9 members of the board, then that doesn't, I mean, that's only 4 spots times 4 committees is 16, but everybody serving 2 spots would be 18. Although the president typically doesn't serve because they're
they're ad hoc on all.
so I guess that puts us down to 16. So that would work perfectly. So then everybody other than the president can serve in not exactly 2 committees, and then that works. That works. Personnel.
All right, so we chat a little bit about it. Do we have any other pressing discussion items for this, or should we move it along?
Just a note, I'll have to double check the language, like George had noticed that there's references to the audit committee, which no longer exists, so I just need to do a more thorough review.
Nice work. Thank you.
Thank you, guys. Thanks for the discussion.
All right. Any other new business? Anything that was not included on here that we should discuss? All right, great. We will move on to our last bit of a regular session, which is the public input session 2. Do we have any additional items? I have 2 things, but I will throw it to the folks in the room, or any virtual items. Anybody? All right, so one thing that our fiscal officer, Jackie, brought to our attention today, I do want to mention that there was a board member who served on our board for quite a few years, Mrs. Williams. Her husband passed away, so we just wanted to make a point to mention that in recognition for her loss. So our condolences are with our former board member. And the other thing I wanted to mention, this is Kathy Barber's last meeting. She has served as our president for quite a few years and has been on the board even longer. So I think it's worth mentioning and recognizing her time on the board and wishing her well on her board retirement. So thank you, Kathy.
Thank you, Kathy.
Thanks, Alish.
So yes, I just wanted to make sure that that was mentioned. Did you? Yeah. Did anybody have anything else? Did I miss anything?
I just have a quick question, it has nothing to do with this, but after, we're gonna vote to go into executive session. Could we have like a 5-minute break
I was gonna suggest it, and
so
Yeah.
that Michael can get to meet us? and
Yes.
Say hello and those types of things, all right?
I'm with you. I was gonna suggest something similar, make sure people had a snack and bathroom break. So I think we're good to move to end the regular session and move to go into executive session. All right, Marcia, second. All right, Barbara, second. We have to do that twice. Good.
I'm sorry, who did the motion?
Marcia and
Marcia,
Barbara.
motion, and second. Barbara.
We said, what's the purpose of the executive?
Oh, yeah, so to move into executive session for the purpose of speaking on a personnel issue, a specific personnel matter.
Engage.
We have to vote, right?
Oh, we vote for that. Do everybody in favor of ending regular session and then moving to executive session? Aye. Anyone opposed? All right, we are done today.
Sorry,
We didn't scare you off?
You
You're
did.
still sitting there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Where's the room? Yeah,
Amy sent out 2 WebEx links.
Yeah,
She should.
I did. There is another one and this one and start the next one.
I just want to make sure it's done this before.
Yeah, I've been here like.
Sean's here. Hey, Sean. I hear that I'm supposed to put in
I
the
recorded
ticket, so I can do that, but this is given up.